Senator Lindsey Graham says President Trump should not back down until he gets the money for the border wall. Roll tape.
The difference between $1.6 billion and $5 billion in a multi-trillion-dollar budget is not that much, but it would have a big impact on the border. This is a small amount of money in terms of the overall budget, but a significant amount of money in terms of securing our border. If I were the president, I would dig in and I would not give in.
Well, that's Senator Lindsey Graham. Come on in, FreedomWorks President Adam Brandon. All right, Adam, plain and simple, should we shut down the wall, the government, if the president doesn't get his money for the wall?
Well, I think we just entered the 2020 cycle, and here we go. One of the president's main promises was to build that border wall. So right now, with the government's running out of funding in a week or so, this is one of those prime moments that you can force something to happen in Washington. And he's looking at this as an opportunity of whatever the downside is for a shutdown, the upside of him getting his money and keeping a campaign promise far outweighs any of the downside. People will forget about a shutdown within a couple of weeks of it even happening. But if he gets to campaign that, look, we built that wall, that's something that's a main thing when you think of Donald Trump. That's one of the things you think about.
So you are saying, yeah, shut it down if you have to, Mr. President. You're saying that?
Well, absolutely. Okay. This is his priority. If you look back on his record right now, my biggest concern is spending, obviously, but he got the tax cut. Hopefully, we're going to get criminal justice reform passed, maybe even as close as this week or early next week. So he's starting to rack up some of these wins, his deregulatory wins. So, look, he promised. When he first started, he came down the escalator. He was promising a border wall, so that he's trying to make do on his promises.
Brandon, I'm sure you saw that exchange in the Oval Office yesterday between the President, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer. I'm sure you saw it. It went on for 17 minutes. It was must-see television. I think the President won. I think it was an open debate between the two sides of the political aisle. I think the President won that debate. What say you?
I think the Democrats would give in. I think we'll go to the edge. We'll have some kind of shutdown. But the image as time goes on of, okay, we're not funding these government priorities because we're refusing to fund anything to take care of our border security, that plays well for the president. So I think there'll be a lot of drama, and then finally they'll say, here, take your money and go. So I think he's smart. I think when I look back over the last 2 years, I wish the president would have dug in a little bit more on some of these big issues that are important to him. And if he gets the border done right now, that's great. And that means we can start focusing on something I absolutely love and he's committed to, and that's cutting spending.
Well, let's get to that, because the president told me, I interviewed him in the White House a couple of months ago, and he was talking then about having government departments, all of them, cut 5% from their budget, just across the board. That's how he would cut spending. But, you know, we've never really tackled this problem of government spending. We've never seriously cut it. In my memory, I've been here 40 years, I can't remember seriously cutting spending. Do you really think we can do it this time?
It's not really an option. We absolutely have to as a nation. We're at $22 trillion in debt. This is the main security risk that we face. With all the talk of trade wars and everything with China, the thing I fear is if you ever get in a conflict with China, we're going to have to get money from them to put gas in our tanks.
Yeah, but Adam, you know that the moment you suggest a cut in any department other than the military, you suggest a cut anywhere, and you will be demagogued to death. You will be starving children. You will be throwing elderly people on the street, forcing the homeless into whatever. You know that's going to happen.
I know, but I don't think there is a moral high ground to bankrupting future generations. So I think we need to as a movement, we need to just have an honest conversation. And I don't think when you're starting to talk about a 5% cut or even a 1% cut, come on, 1% out of all of these different bureaucracies, I don't think anyone will notice a difference. So after all the demagoguery goes crazy and people don't notice a difference, then you can start cutting more and reforming other programs. Then with this incredible economic growth we've got going on, if you hold the line on spending, you grow the economy. In a decade, we're not going to have to talk about this looming fiscal crisis.
Well, let's see if we can actually do it. Adam,
and one thing I want to add is tonight is the FreedomWorks Christmas party, and we're going to do our patriotic part for American bourbon.
Okay, that was a good last line. Thanks very much, Adam. We'll see you later. Thank you very much, sir.